Over the past 2 weeks, I've been running a bit of a self experiment. Does dieting faster really make you lose muscle? You see, when people come into our coaching, for example, in the OC12, most people are losing somewhere between half a kilo and up to a kilo a week, potentially a little bit more, but usually it's around that kilo a week mark. And if you actually look at our averages over a 12-week period, averages out somewhere between 9 and 10 kilos lost. I wanted to see myself if I could push a little bit harder than that and almost hack the system to say if my training is spot on, if my nutrition is perfect, can I get away with dieting that little bit harder? So this is an update. This video is an update on that whole process. Started off at 102.5 kilos 2 weeks ago, and as of this morning, I was 98.2. So we are 4.3 kilos down in 2 weeks, which is pretty aggressive. And I think if you look at the research, that is completely unrecommended. It's not recommended by the research. It tends to suggest that somewhere around 1% a week of your body weight is a good position to maintain all of the muscle that you've built throughout a gaining phase and to not lose it when you actually diet. But of course, research is one thing, but in practice, can we beat the research and can we make it so that I don't lose muscle throughout this process? And if I do, hey ho, but if I don't, potentially a interesting finding. So this is just an update from me. Like I say, 4.3 kilos down in 2 weeks. That's going up more than 2 kilos a week. And it doesn't seem to be slowing down very much. Granted, I did lose about 2.5, 3 in that first week. So this last week has been more like 1.5 kilos down. But I don't think that deficit has changed at all. Now, a few lessons to start off with. Number one, this process is definitely a recipe for hunger. I have been pretty gosh darn hungry because this is probably the least amount I've eaten in about 6 years. I've never really dieted this low, and obviously that's all part of the experiment, but it is very much aggressive. You're going to be hungry, and I'm kind of accepting that at the minute, getting the old coffee in and a couple of monsters throughout the week, and that's definitely helping. However, if you're going to try this, which I'm not recommending, by the way, do not recommend this yet. But if you are going to try it, you're going to need some tactics to actually make sure that you're not starving all the time. So a few little things that I'm doing is, like I say, getting some caffeine throughout the day. Actually, in my meal plan, I've got a coffee with milk, and then I just have a black coffee normally. And also, if I don't have the black coffee, sometimes I will have a Monster. So caffeine levels are definitely slightly higher to try to mitigate some of the hunger that I'm definitely racking up. And then also, a big point on this is obviously I am eating a lot of protein. The vast majority of my calories are actually coming from protein right now because I really want to make sure that I just don't lose any muscle throughout this short, sharp diet. So, protein right now is at 220 grams. I'm currently, like I say, about 98 kilos. So, that's more than 2 grams per kilo of body weight. So, that is definitely helping me stay more full. But it is a bit of a slog to get that much protein in on this little food. So in the morning, I'm having whey as the kind of key protein source. Then throughout the day, I'm mostly having chicken or 5% beef. And then I have a load of yogurt in the evening, 0%, to bump up that protein target because, it is hard. It's hard to get that amount of protein in on about 1,900 calories. So be aware if you are going to go for this, is you're going to be basically just eating protein the whole time. Now, other findings that I've had, other than the hunger, is my training is definitely, I wouldn't say it's being impacted. I'm not super weak, right? I'm still pretty much holding on to my numbers that I set in my gaining phase pretty much across the board. However, getting into the gym is, I'm definitely relying on what would you say, discipline over motivation. The feeling of wanting to go and train is definitely lower. The pumps are slightly worse than normal, obviously because I'm basically not having any carbs. Carbs are very low, at least compared to what I was having in my gaining phase. Of course, it's all relative. 1,900 calories. I'm 6'6". I'm 100 kilos. That's not very much food for someone of my kind of body weight and height. But yeah, the pumps aren't great. The strength is just about holding on, but I am like really having to fight for it. And also the motivation is slightly lower, I'm finding. So again, if you're going to do this, you need to have some serious discipline because it's a bit rough, can't lie. Sort of going to the gym like, right, I need to attack this pretty hard. And then the only other finding is I have, compared to previous diets, it's been a much quicker process going from feeling strong to feeling not so strong, especially on movements that are very unstable. So when I'm looking at like my dumbbell press, my barbell press, after the first sort of week and a half, they were both feeling pretty rough. So actually recently I've made some changes to my programming to make sure that I'm choosing stable movements that I can actually continue to progress throughout this diet, because the unstable movements, like anything free weight really, especially for pressing, was pretty much immediately feeling quite rough. So the dumbbell press has been swapped out for a machine press. The flat press, the barbell press, has also been swapped out for a different machine press. My dumbbell overhead, I've swapped that out for a high incline Smith machine press, just so I can maintain a good amount of load going through those muscles and I'm not just shaking all over the place, because that is indeed what was happening. So changes have been made there, and that is probably the biggest impact I've noticed on my training is pushing work, which obviously for me, like my chest isn't exactly my strongest body part. So I've had to really try to hold on to my numbers across the last 2 weeks and make some swaps. The rest of the stuff's looking pretty good. Like, I mean, today I curled the 22s, which is a PB. Granted, I only got 5, but hey ho, still lifted it. So things like that are still progressing quite well. It's just the pressing that I'm like, ugh, this is quite hard to hold on to now. And then the final point that I'm definitely noticing is if I don't segment a time in my day to actually put towards steps and getting steps in, my steps are naturally way lower. And I think that's just a product of having low food. Naturally, I am just moving around less. So I'm really having to make a conscious effort to go and do some steps. Whereas normally I'd naturally hit sort of 6,000-7,000 steps. It seems to have been pulled down to sort of 4,000 to 5,000 just because I'm not moving around as much. So I've got to force that movement as opposed to it being natural. So yeah, that is my lessons so far of this experiment of pushing this diet super hard and see what happens. We have got, like I say, I'm about 98 right now. Initial goal was to get to around about 95 before then reversing out into my holiday, where I should have about 4 to 5 weeks of eating more food. So we're going to keep pushing until then. Another couple of kilos, which to be honest, it might be another 2 to 3 weeks and then I'm done, which is kind of cool, like 5-week diet. Unless I end up losing loads of muscle, which I'm bloody praying that I don't, but it might happen. And hey ho, we've learnt. But I feel like as a coach, I need to experiment with this stuff so that I've been there before and I can encourage clients to obviously push harder, and B, if it works, then sick. Like I can obviously help people go through this process. But to preface that, this style, if it does work, is only doable if you can be super dialed with your training, with your nutrition, with your sleep, or else you will lose muscle. Like I can almost guarantee it. So yeah, I guess I'll update you on another one of these HL experiments in maybe a week's time and give you an update to see how it's going. So yeah, hopefully you found this video somewhat interesting, and be sure to subscribe. There, boom. See you in the next one.